I'm Dave, and there is a new Ninja Turtles movie just around the corner, and that is causing a wave of strange emotions, a mixture of excitement and extreme concern. Why should anyone be concerned, you may be saying, Dave, about whether or not a new Ninja Turtles movie happens to be any good? I mean, there's already been a load of Ninja Turtles movies, and anyone who's got a vested interest in watching Ninja Turtles movies has probably selected a favourite. So why should it matter what they feel about this one? Well, it's all in the timing, you see. About 25 years have elapsed since the first big Ninja Turtles craze, and what that means is that there is a group of people with a genuine vested interest in this being good. I am talking about the people who were fans of Turtles the first time round, who are now parents of children the right age to be fans of it this time round. See, their kids have been watching a successful and good Ninja Turtles series on Nickelodeon for the last couple of years, and they are now in exactly the position we were in when the first movie came out. They've been watching the series on the TV for the last couple of years, and now suddenly here comes a movie that's going to turn them live action and gritty and angry.
The Turtles, I mean, not the children. The film isn't going to turn the children gritty and angry. That's the internet you're thinking of.
Remember how exciting that was? Wouldn't you want to pass that on to your children if you had the opportunity? Well, that opportunity might be here. It's all up to whether or not the filmmakers have failed those children. There are two key points that are concerning people. The first is a name. Everyone knows what Michael Bay did to the last big 80s franchise he got his hands on, the Transformers. No, not that he changed it. Why should he pander to aging Transformer fans? No, I'm talking about the fact that whereas he could have made, let's say, an exciting, fun, Pacific Rim style film about giant good robots fighting giant bad robots, instead of all that, he made a series of films which essentially watch like if George Lucas were to CG robots walking about in the background of a special edition Freddy Got Fingered. Screaming, 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 racist screaming people yelping about. And while the first film gives that some amount of context, that context quickly drains away, and the remaining films just sort of become insane. Now, Michael Bay is not directing this film, as someone is always quick to point out whenever it's suggested that it's a Michael Bay film. No, he's not. He's just producing it. But a Michael Bay film is such a specific thing, and the Transformers films are so hugely successful, that we can pretty much rely on the director of this film to try and ape the Michael Bay style. And one piece of evidence for this is the second sticking point I was going to mention before, the presence of Megan Fox as April O'Neil. She is only here to marry this film to the Transformers franchise and make it seem like one big cohesive thing, a big Michael Bay thing. Much has been said about the changes made to the Ninja Turtles world in this film, such as the fact that their faces are strange and lipsy and nostrilsy, such as the initial now dropped idea that the Ninja Turtles would be aliens rather than turtles, and presumably a lot of other changes like that we don't know about yet, and a lot of people who would call themselves Ninja Turtles purists were quite annoyed that the film seemed to be changing all that stuff. I say poppycock to this. When I watch this film, I may find changes that I like and changes that I dislike, but the fact that they are changes means nothing. There are so many versions of Ninja Turtles, each as canon as the next, and no two are the same in almost any regard apart from the names and I was going to say the bandana colours, but not even that. Which version should this resemble, for example? The 80s cartoon, which a lot of people refer to as the original, the comic series that preceded it. I just spilt tea all over my lap. The 2002 series, which at the time many wrote off as simply anime, but it wasn't, it was brilliant, it was perhaps the best Ninja Turtles there's ever been. Go and watch it. The film, the other film, the other film, the other film, the other comics, the other comics, the other comics. There are so many versions to choose from, and depending on which one you go with, Splinter was either originally Hamato Yoshi, or he was trained by him, or Hamato Yoshi died and was reincarnated as Splinter. Sometimes Splinter has a child, sometimes Splinter doesn't have a child. Sometimes Splinter's a bat and Donatello's a cyborg. Rob Paulson is sometimes one turtle, sometimes another. Sometimes all their masks are red, sometimes they're different colours. Sometimes the Ninja Turtles' origin, their original mutation, happened because of Shredder. Sometimes it happened because of aliens. Sometimes it happened because it was a parody of the origin of Daredevil. Sometimes the Shredder is the main villain throughout the entire series. Sometimes he's dead by the end of episode 1. So there's no point in suggesting that anything they change here for this film is in any way a desecration of the source material. It's not. I know it sounds like I'm a fan of this film already, but actually I think it's not going to be a good film. I want it to be a good film. That would be fun. I don't mind the lips and the nose. I've got used to them. I don't mind Megan Fox. I've got used to that already. She was alright in the first Transformers. No, I just think it's not going to be a good film. And I've been open about this, and people have said to me, well, why? If you think that all of the weird stuff about this is fine, if you think that the designs are fine, if not perfect, you know, that's alright, and that's alright, and all the extra extraneous details all over the Turtles, if that's all fine, and you don't mind it, and you don't mind the ways it's different from previous versions of Ninja Turtles, if all that's fine, then what's your problem, Dave? Why don't you think this will be a good film? Because this is something people always get wrong when we're talking about remakes and reboots and stuff. Stop looking at the stupid stuff about whether there are different shapes and colours in this film. Never mind all of that. That's not what makes a good or a bad film. Let me illustrate by talking about the original Ninja Turtles movie. What we remember when we think back to that first film is amazing Jim Henson suits, a way spikier, scarier Shredder than we were used to, this certified radical dude, the fact that you should never lower your eyes to an enemy, stuff like that. This new film will have stuff like that. There'll be CG suits, there'll be a way spikier, way scarier, if more spikes equals more scary Shredder. There'll probably be radical dudes in it, but they'll be all shallow and frat boyish, and there'll just be tons of cool stuff in this film. Tons, I'm sure. But none of that was what made the first Turtles film good. Good films that really feel satisfying, have something more going on under the surface details. Sometimes you're not even aware of it, but because it's there, forming a solid base for the rest of the film's content to rest on, the film just feels good. Now, I'm not saying that the first Ninja Turtles film was a great film, but it was a great Ninja Turtles film, and that was because of what was going on under the hood that you might not remember. Here's what Ninja Turtles the movie had going on under the surface. There's a crime wave going on, but not just a crime wave. Notice how the film deviates from both the cartoons and the comics by having the Foot Clan be made up not of ninjas or of robots, but just of young people, anonymous kids. Kids who, when we see their hideout, are tearing the place up with spiky hair and video games and skateboards and cigarettes. And let that thought percolate in your mind for a while. Kids gone bad. Why would kids go bad? Who's gonna fight this crime wave? Well, nobody, it seems. The police aren't doing anything. In fact, they don't even believe it's going on. But then suddenly someone is fighting back. The Ninja Turtles, who fight some of these thieving kids and then return to their lair, where they address their master and sensei, Splinter. And there's this scene with the 5 of them, starting out with Splinter as the focus. It's a somber tone. He's a frail old man. And once he's got them all together, he tells them, "You are still young, but one day I will be gone." But the Turtles are kids. They're not into this serious adult stuff. They want to play. They want to be free. Raphael in particular is in a mood. He lost a side during the fight. Splinter told him to leave it and let it be gone. Raphael is frustrated with this, and he just has to get out of there. So he ups and leaves. While he's out, he very quickly gets into another fight. And so when he gets back, sneaking back home after everyone's asleep, we get treated to something that was probably the last thing we were expecting when we sat down to watch a Ninja Turtles film. A genuinely touching scene, in which Splinter, who apparently has sat up waiting for him all night, has a real heart-to-heart with Raphael about all of his bottled-up anger and the fact that he faces it alone. And during this, all talk of sensei and student is gone. And just as we're realizing what a serious scene this is, for the first time in the film, Splinter calls him his son. Then we find out about Danny. Danny isn't from any previous version of Turtles. He's a new character made up for this film. Some people think that that makes him a character we ought to ignore, but no, it's worth looking at him closely and how he fits into this story. April O'Neil is an investigative reporter who's been working on the story about these criminal gangs, and her reports have been calling out the police for not doing anything about it. Naturally, the police don't like this, and they've clearly been putting pressure on April's boss, Charles Pennington, who here urges April to please back off from this story. And he has a teenage son called Danny, and if we've been paying attention, we recognise him as the recurring focal point of all those teenage crime spree shots at the beginning. And remember, you're percolating. Why would kids go bad? He's got a police file. Evidently he's been in trouble before and is now on some sort of probation. And the chief of police, the one that April's reports keep calling out as incompetent, calls Danny's dad, April's boss, and talks in a tone of voice that suggests he's about to broker a deal, which later turns out to be that if Charles doesn't put a stop to April's investigation, they're gonna throw the book at his son. Suddenly, Charles is very much on April's case to stop her doing those reports. He's more stressed than ever. He's berating Danny all the way home in the car, at which point Danny, frustrated by this, has to get out of there. So he just ups and leaves. And he flees to that Pleasure Island base where the criminal kids have been hanging out, and we find out what's going on. The select elite are being trained in martial arts, turned into New York ninjas, and then we finally get to see their leader. The Shredder is so imposing and so important that the gang hardly ever get to see him. His appearance is heralded by gongs, and everyone drops everything they're doing and runs to see him address them. The first thing he does is initiate a new trainee into the Foot Clan proper, and tell him how much of an honour this is and how proud the student has made him. And after that little idea about pride has been introduced, he says his most important line. "This is your family. I am your father. I could go on, but I think you're getting the picture. Wherever this film takes us, whether we're hanging out with the Turtles, or with April and Casey, or with the criminals, the film is always secretly under the surface talking about fathers, and in particular, fathers and sons. Two fathers, Splinter and Charles, their boiling pot of anger teenage sons. One of those fathers is up to the task of channeling that anger into something useful, and the other isn't. Danny takes Shredder as a surrogate father, as do countless other kids, and remember that thought, percolating at the back of your mind. Why do kids go bad? In this film, it's because they have been rejected or failed by their families. Setting aside the obvious point about species, you could look at every teenage member of the Foot Clan as a mirror of what could happen to our four heroes, or indeed anyone their age, if not helped through life by a family. And it goes further. We get a whole backstory for Splinter's father figure, and even April's father is mentioned. He left her the antique shop that she lives over, and that shop even serves as a kind of stand-in for him. As they fondly explore it, we get a sense of the friendly, fusty old person he must have been, resulting in a strong character like April. The only main character whose father we don't get to hear about is Casey, and you only have to have a quick look at his lifestyle to draw your own conclusions there. Casey gives us a look at what Raph could be if he didn't have a Splinter. When that antique shop burns down and Splinter is captured, an affront made devastating to the Turtles by this fathers and sons theme, and everything collapses around them, April, Casey, and the Turtles drive out to an old farmhouse owned by April's family and set about accidentally forming into a little family of their own, which later ends up going up against the this here and that down there family of the Foot Clan. So what happened here is this. The brief was to make a Ninja Turtles movie at the absolute rocket to the stars height of the series' popularity. If you weren't there, I can't possibly describe to you how vein-fizzingly exciting and vitally important the Ninja Turtles were to my generation at the precise time when they made this film. So all they had to do was put the characters up on screen and have them lark about and eat pizzas for a while, and that would guarantee the film's success. The robot suits alone would have made this the film event of our childhoods. But they didn't do that. They looked at what the central, most relatable premise of the series was: teenage brothers and their surrogate father, and they constructed a story around that theme. And onto that theme, yeah, they sprinkled ninja kicks and pizzas, and those are the things that we saw at the time and grew up to remember later. But those are just the topping on the deep pan crust of the real story. I'll be very happy if I'm proved wrong about this, but I doubt there's going to be anything as strong as that going on under the surface in the new Ninja Turtles movie. There might be nothing going on under the surface at all. There doesn't have to be. They didn't have to put all that stuff in the first time round either, but they did, because they displayed that they were making a good Ninja Turtles film. Bum, 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 bum.